This story starts off by introducing us to Momo Ayase, a girl who's having a very unpleasant conversation with her good-for-nothing boyfriend. This guy has the guts to say that he won't have a date with her if she doesn't lend him any money. He also tells her that they can go if she finally puts out already, though she has to pay for the room. Completely sick of this guy, Momo immediately kicks him and tries to attack him, but he quickly blocks her blows, clearly angry. The guy claims that he's not interested in a chick who has no money and won't let him have his way with her. Momo only insults him, calling him octopus, squid, and tuna for some reason. Once in the classroom, she's sulking next to her friends, Miko and Kei, who also comment on the weird fact that she uses fish names as insults. Momo complains about the situation, saying that they should be comforting her, since that guy was her first boyfriend ever. Kei then reminds her that she already told her not to go for him, and she also wants to know what she even saw in him. Momo explains that he looked like Ken Takakura, referring to her favorite actor, who she admires so much. This isn't new to her friends, who only criticize her reasons, but Momo proudly says that she likes masculine guys like Ken Takakura. Both her friends quote one of Ken's phrases, which is, "I'm an awkward guy," and immediately tell her that dudes like that are extinct. Momo gives up and leaves the classroom, wandering around school and seeking for someone to comfort her. She stops to see some guys pestering a student in one of the classrooms, so she decides to just go in there and sit in front of him to make them stop. Momo pretends she's reading the guy's magazine to convince the others that she's with him. Once they stop, she only complains about how lame they are and leaves the classroom, wondering if only scum lives in this world. She goes back to walking through the hallways, wanting to relieve all her stress. However, she stops when the guy from earlier shows up, a student who's casually named Ken Takakura, just like her favorite actor, though Momo doesn't know this yet. He nervously tells her that he knows she's in love, since there's no other reason why someone like her would be talking to him. Momo simply tells him that he got the wrong idea, clarifying that she wasn't looking to be friends with him or anything like that. She tries telling him to forget about it, but Ken cuts her off and starts yapping about how the president has already gone to Mars and the Project Pegasus. He's sure she's a fan of the occult, but Momo clarifies she doesn't believe in UFOs or aliens or stuff like that. Ken keeps babbling about the topic in huge detail, even when she tries to ignore him or dismiss him. This makes her completely lose her patience, so Momo raises her voice, saying that she's not in the mood for his stuff, since she just got dumped. She claims that a nerd pushing their stuff at her is so typical of otaku and is really annoying, and that right there is why he has no friends. Momo walks away, asking him not to talk to her like he knows her, but soon enough, she recognizes that she was too harsh. She goes back and picks up the magazine he was holding, returning it to him while she clarifies that she doesn't believe in aliens, but she does believe in ghosts. Ken suddenly laughs, saying that there's no such thing as ghosts, and this completely offends her. Seeing her so angry, Ken tells her that she shouldn't have mocked the occult, and they soon start quarreling with each other. Momo lets him know that her grandma is a spirit medium, wanting to know if he's ever seen an exorcism. She claims that it's really wicked, since the possessed person goes into convulsions. Ken dismisses this, saying that a person can go into convulsions from illness too, so it's not proof that ghosts are out there. She then asks him if he's ever had an alien let him ride a UFO, and he tells her that her logic is jumping too far. Momo's friends casually witness this scandal, and both of them seem pleased to see her like that. Already sick of their bickering, Momo decides to have a contest, daring him to go to someplace haunted, and if there really are ghosts, he'll be serving him as a gopher. Ken quickly accepts, saying that he'll show her UFOs, and if she's able to see one, she'll be his gopher instead. The next thing we see is Momo wandering around the Nagi General Hospital at night, asking Ken through a phone call what this place is, since it's way too scary. He explains that Nagi Hospital is called the Sanctuary for UFOs, and if she calls for one on the roof, she will experience abduction, which is when an alien kidnaps you and experiments with your body. She asks him if he has been experimented on before, but Ken only tells her that there's a chance that he has, since many people who experience abduction have their memories erased. Momo asks him how things are going on his end, and Ken informs her that he has arrived at the spiritual hotspot. Clearly nervous, he enters the place, wanting to prove that there are no such things as ghosts. As they speak through the phone call, they both realize that neither of them have ever seen ghosts or aliens. Momo reminds him that her grandma's a spirit medium, and she loves her grandma a lot, since she doesn't have parents. Her family is seriously weird, and she always had to perform a good luck ritual before stepping outside. She was always forced to do it the entire way to school. And of course, she was the laughingstock of all the boys, but the toughest part of it all was when the boy she liked made fun of her, and she really hated her grandma when that happened. Since then, she didn't talk to her grandma until recently, and she stopped doing the ritual. Sometime after that, she realized that she didn't hate the fact that the boy she liked didn't like her, but she hated the fact that the boy she liked made fun of her grandma. In reality, she loved both her grandma and her job as a spirit medium, because it felt special. She has faith in her, and that's why she believes in ghosts, even if she's never seen one before. Momo then asks him why he believes in aliens, but Ken dodges the question, saying that it doesn't really matter. As he walks through the haunted place, he notices red footprints on the floor, and when he follows them with his gaze, there's nothing there. However, when Ken turns around, a horrifying granny is staring at him, saying that she'll let him suckle her bosom if he lets her gobble his manhood. Ken immediately starts running away, and Momo warns him that running is not good. He tries to convince himself that that was just an ordinary granny, but soon, the whole tunnel turns red and is now longer than it was. Momo explains that he can't let her outrun him at any cost, since if he loses a race against Turbo Granny, he'll be cursed. Before she can hear anything else, the phone call suddenly is cut off, so Momo decides to head over there immediately. However, before she can leave, all lights in the hospital are turned off, and she manages to see 3 figures behind her. Momo tries to run away, but these mysterious beings easily catch up to her and trap her, turning her clothes to shreds. When she wakes up after a while, these beings introduce themselves as Serpoians and explain that they come from the planet Serpo. They assure her that they're friendly people, but Momo tells them that friendly guys don't strip girls naked. The Serpoians explain that their kind only has males, thus they reproduce through clone technology. However, identical units do not instigate biological evolution. Therefore, for them to regain reproductive functions similar to humans, they want her bananas. In order for this, they will have intercourse. And after doing that with her, they will extract her uterus and her banana for research. Momo obviously starts freaking out, saying that she might have dated a douchebag, but she didn't let him have her virginity. Her chastity has been saved for a Ken Takakura she has yet to meet, so there's no way some creepy alien is going to take it from her. Not listening to her, the Serpoians start using psychokinesis to control her brainwaves in order to arouse her. Despite her strong resistance, they try starting intercourse either way, but her phone ringing interrupts the act. One of them picks up the phone, but as soon as he does, a hand comes out of the screen and punches his face. The phone screen turns entirely red, and the Turbo Granny suddenly comes out of it, immediately approaching one of the Serpoians to bite off his crotch. Momo realizes that Ken turned into that thing, and being possessed by the Turbo Granny, he starts apologizing to her, admitting that he does believe in ghosts, and he was cursed by one. She's glad to see he's okay, but she quickly asks him to help her out of that situation. However, Ken explains that he can't control himself, and before he can help it, the Turbo Granny takes over and starts attacking the aliens. Feeling threatened, the Serpoians get rid of their false skin to counterattack, but the Turbo Granny is so fast they can't even use their psychokinesis. The Turbo Granny takes them down one by one, stealing their bananas, so one of them uses Serpoian form serpogrammetry, slamming her against the wall. Thanks to this brutal hit, Ken manages to take over his own body again, and he tells the Serpoian that he'll give anything to him. He explains that he's been wanting to see aliens for the longest time, all because he didn't have any friends, and he thought at least aliens would be his friends. He's been calling to the skies for a UFO since grade school, but they never came, no matter how much he called for them. Other humans bullied him to pass their time, and aliens don't give him the time of day. Nobody ever acknowledged his existence, but Momo actually stood up for him, despite that, so he doesn't want them to lay a finger on her. Ken says that he won't allow anyone to hurt her, and if it's for her sake, he'll even become a monster. As he pronounces these words, Ken turns back into the Turbo Granny, completely ready to fight. However, only one strike from the Serpoian is enough to take him down, and Ken easily gives up. The alien uses psychokinesis on her again, and under all that pressure, Momo starts remembering her grandma. Her grandma used to say that if she has her chi out, she won't get hurt or sick, and bad things won't be able to get near her. She just has to firm up her lower abs and imagine having her chi shoot up from the top of her head. This made little Momo remember all the bullying she suffered because of that, and it was the reason she stopped talking to her grandma. However, the current Momo now apologizes to her grandma, recognizing that she just felt embarrassed back then. Having that clear, she decides to follow the advice her grandma used to give her, and that allowed her to suddenly break free from her restraints. The Serpoian is shocked to see his psychokinesis is being pushed back, but Momo is just proud to know that her grandma was a real spirit medium. She thanks her grandma, since now she has the power to take these creeps on and send them flying. With a single kick, Momo truly sends that Serpoian flying, making him crash against a spaceship that was clearly hidden. The UFO starts falling apart, so she now has to deal with the Turbo Granny, who immediately tries attacking her. Thanks to her new psychic powers, Momo manages to get the Turbo Granny out of Ken's body, but he still seems to be out of control. The Turbo Granny explains that she has possession of Ken's manhood, and as long as she has that part of him, the curse won't be lifted. If she wants it back, she'll have to come to the tunnel, since this place is too far for her. The turbo granny disappears, and Momo manages to escape the UFO with Ken after it crashes down on the ground. At the end, she admits that she believes in aliens since she was kidnapped, and Ken admits that he believes in ghosts since he was cursed. She now has to hold his curse back with psychic powers, or else he'll lose control. Ken decides that the only thing he can do is to beat the turbo granny, so he'll go back to that tunnel. He starts walking away after taking his clothes off, wanting Momo to wear these in the meantime. She quickly follows him, saying that he'll lose control without her, but Ken clarifies that he can't get her involved since all of this happened because of what he did. Still not budging, Momo asks him why he can't allow her to come with him, saying that after that experience earlier, she can't leave him alone. Ken then apologizes, saying that he's an awkward guy after all, so he would like her to put some clothes on. What he says immediately makes Momo remember that quote from her favorite actor, Ken Takakura, and that makes her heart race for some reason. She tries to convince herself that it was nothing, but decides to ask his name either way. The moment he finally introduces himself as Ken Takakura, the UFO behind Momo explodes, but she doesn't even move because of her shock to that name. Once Momo gets out of her shock after hearing his name, she immediately goes into denial, saying that she won't accept it. Her tantrum makes her lose focus, and the turbo granny takes over Ken's body once again. Without thinking, Momo panics and violently slams his body against a wall, but Ken thanks her anyway. She then decides to impose a rule, saying that she forbids him to continue using his name. Since he likes occult stuff, he'll be Okarun from now on, and if he uses his name, she'll kill him. Ken complains about that, since that's his real name, but he accepts either way, so Momo teases him to bring up the mood a little. She keeps going on about it, to the point that Ken even farts on her face, saying that it's because she keeps pressuring him. They walk together on the streets until morning, and Momo says that the turbo granny probably won't come out, as ghosts come out at night. She proposes that he comes over to her place for now, mentioning that he looks creepier than ghosts at the moment. Once they get to Momo's place, she warns him to be careful, since her grandma is strict on guys, and she even nearly killed her last boyfriend. Ken complains about being told something like that at the last minute, but as he's about to cross the threshold, he suddenly catches fire and writhes in pain. Momo panics as much as him, not knowing why that just happened, so she just uses her powers to throw Ken into the river across the street. She then realizes that an energy barrier was set up, so she apologizes to Ken, taking off the seal at the entrance so he can come in. He's still reluctant to walk past the threshold, but Momo kind of reassures him, saying that she'll just dump him in the river if he catches on fire again. With a lot of hesitation, he's able to walk into her house, and Momo makes fun of his new anti-hairstyle after catching on fire. Ken doesn't see that as funny as she does, saying that he was about to die over there. Momo notices that her grandma isn't home at the moment, but she invites him in either way. She goes into her room and closes the door to change, but in a matter of seconds, the curse takes over him again, so Ken barges into the room in panic. Momo covers herself, and without thinking, she uses her powers to slam him against the wall, telling him to stay out. Once she finally changes into new clothes, she hands him a change of clothes for him as well. Without any sugarcoating, she mentions the fact that he doesn't have anything down there, so she asks him to let her take a look. Ken immediately checks himself, and he freaks out when he finds out that his thing is actually gone. Momo makes fun of him, asking him to show her, but he quickly rejects this idea, saying that the issue isn't whether or not it's there. He complains as he changes his clothes, wondering what they're going to do about this. Momo asks him not to make it sound like she's the villain, but Ken clarifies that she's the one who challenged him. Clearly offended, she tells him that she wasn't interested in his occult stories to begin with, and she only picked a fight because he kept talking to her. Ken stays quiet for a moment, and then confesses that he didn't want to miss his chance, since he's always wanted a friend. That's why he so desperately started talking to her, but in the end, she lives in a different world, and she's not someone that a person like him should be talking to. He apologizes to her, feeling sorry that he roped her into so much danger, but he clarifies that when this is all over, she can just ignore him again. Momo isn't happy to hear this, and she tells him that that's the annoying part about him, since he assumes how others feel and jumps to conclusions without asking. The reason he doesn't have friends is that he shoves them away, so he shouldn't say that she can ignore him, as they can just talk about the occult like normal. Ken looks away from her, now tearing up quietly, so Momo gets closer to him and asks him to say something. However, Ken calls her ugly, so they get into a fight again, as usual, and he tells her that she's completely tactless, since she bluntly recites people's weaknesses. Their quarreling is interrupted by the sound of the doorbell, so he assumes that her grandma is back. Momo quickly warns him to be quiet, clarifying that she's never heard a doorbell like this. Her grandma told her in the past that they have two doorbells. One is for humans, and the other one is for evil spirits. She panics when she realizes that this is happening because she took the talisman off the entrance. Ken mentions that there's clearly something out there, so he asks what they're going to do. Momo tells him that she'll put the talisman back up, and if it's an evil spirit, it'll burn up like he did. He asks her if she's going to make him burn as well, but she says that he can just get out of their plot. Once they step outside, Momo notices that the spirit is nowhere to be seen, but Ken points out a black cloud right above them, and suddenly, reality glitches. The entire plot is trapped inside by walls made of stone, which means they have no way out anymore. Momo says that she still can attach the talisman to the Torii gate, but Ken warns her that she can't do that. After all, the Torii gate is embedded into the wall, so they can't leave the plot like this. Not knowing what to do, Momo notices she's bleeding through her nose, and Ken's condition is also worsening. She soon realizes it's because of the black fog, and in the midst of all of that, she finally spots the spirit. This unsettling spirit tells them that they're evil people, since they broke the promise. Without waiting any further, the evil spirit attacks them, throwing a punch that they barely can dodge, nearly destroying the wall. Seeing that brute strength, Momo and Ken immediately start running away, but the punches are so huge, they're not easy to dodge. The spirit asks them to give him their banana organ, stomping on the ground with a monstrous strength. Once they get some distance, Ken clarifies that that's not an evil spirit, and it's actually an alien, specifically a Flatwoods monster. Momo then questions what happened with the doorbell, asking how a chime specifically for ghosts reacted to an alien. Ken explains that there are studies that say people who see spiritual phenomena often see UFOs as well. In other words, there might be something in common between ghosts and aliens, which means this might be related to the aliens from last night. Momo mentions that if they don't hurry up and do something about that thing, the poison fog will kill them. But if she's holding Ken's curse back, she can't use her psychic powers well enough to fight. As they run away from the explosions and attacks from that alien, Ken's curse starts taking over him again. Momo tries her best to control it with her powers, and despite having his control back, Ken notices his hand is still transformed. Clearly frustrated, she tries to focus even more, but this gives Ken some time to think, staring at his hand as he mulls over the situation. After a few seconds, he finally speaks up, saying that he will fight, asking her to release the curse. Seeing her confusion, Ken clarifies that he's not afraid of aliens, so he asks her if she's able to release just the physical curse while keeping his head in check. Before she can say anything, the alien attacks again, so they quickly move away. Momo warns him that she hasn't learned how to control this power yet, but Ken insists, saying that if all goes well, they might be able to control the Turbo Granny's powers. Once again, Momo says that she's not sure she can do it, but she does all she can to concentrate and tries to do it anyway. Just when a blast from that monster is about to hit them, Ken quickly jumps out of it with her, now fully transformed, but having control of his body. Even his voice is different as he mentions how amazing this is, since he's now brimming with power, though he's also totally depressed for some reason. Momo wonders if his psyche is broken, and Ken clarifies that his conscience is clear, but he totally has the blues. She's easily weirded out by his manner of speech now, but Ken apologizes, saying that he's an awkward guy after all. Hearing that familiar quote once again, Momo freaks out, so she immediately warns him not to say that ever again. Ken wonders if he should just eradicate himself then, so she asks him to stop talking like that, since it's already pissing her off. As the monster approaches them, he decides to go fight against it, saying that he's sure it won't work. Ken looks back at her, clearly distracted, so Momo tries to warn him that the monster is about to attack him. Before he can move, the monster claps his hands to crush him, but in less than a second, 5 of his fingers are off. Ken mentions that he moved out of reflex, but he apparently used Turbo Granny's powers. Momo is clearly impressed, since she didn't even see him moving, and it happened really fast. That makes her believe that they can probably do this, but soon enough, Ken vomits blood, and the alien manages to punch him. Before he can do any further damage, Momo uses her powers to bring Ken back towards her, asking him if he's okay. Now, in his normal form, Ken apologizes, explaining that his body apparently can't keep up with the power of the curse. It feels like his body is going to burst into a million pieces, since this isn't a speed that humans can move at. He's only managed to damage 5 fingers from that thing, so he doesn't know how they're going to defeat a monster like that. Momo is also stressed, not having any idea how, but soon enough she realizes that this alien might be actually sumo wrestling, for some reason. This makes her wonder if they'll win if they get that monster's hand to touch the ground. With that in mind, Ken stands up, mentioning that she's a genius, something she acknowledges quickly. He warns her that next time is his limit, so Momo instructs him to go for the legs, saying that she'll make that thing trip with her psychic powers. Ken transforms once again, feeling totally depressed, but she explains that they have to get a bit closer, so he has to back her up. The two of them immediately start running straight towards the alien, which angrily asks them for their bananas. After dodging one of the attacks from that monster, Ken uses his powers to run at an inhuman speed, managing to destroy the alien's leg, quickly reaching his limit. Momo then holds back the curse with her right hand, deciding to take the monster down with her left hand. However, she accidentally confuses her right for her left and ends up slamming Ken against the ground. Despite that small mistake, she quickly manages to make the monster's hand touch the ground and realizes that its hand is melting, just as they planned. The monster starts being swallowed by the ground, but it quickly uses its feet to stop it and grabs Momo to send her flying until she crashes against the wall, finishing up with another punch. Ken quickly starts losing control over the curse, but he's back in just a second, and he realizes that Momo is still conscious and fighting. She tells the sumo alien that he put his hand on the ground, so he's cheating right now. Ken asks her to release the curse once again, saying that he doesn't care what happens to his body. However, Momo tells him that she's going to beat up this alien, so he just has to sit and watch. The monster brutally punches her once and once again, so Ken completely panics, but Momo is still standing at the end, saying that this depth is great, because if she's that deep into the wall, that means she's outside the Torii gate. Momo immediately uses her powers to bring Ken towards her, and attaches the talisman to the Torii gate once again. The alien then quickly catches on fire, and before they know it, the two of them are finally out of that nightmare. Momo is clearly relieved, and she also notices that his hairstyle changed, though she mentions that she did prefer the anti-perm. She starts feeling kind of dizzy, and all of a sudden, she passes out, so the curse completely takes over Ken, while she's out and defenseless. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, then subscribe to support the channel. Comment the word depressed to prove that you stayed till the end, since not a lot of people do.